My name is Walt DeBlauw. I was born in 1936 in Granville, Michigan at 37 Wilson Avenue. I was number 5 of a family of 8. And when I was about 1.5 years old, my mom and dad decided to move to Redlands. And I must have sat on the lap of my mother all the way. But we landed here in Redlands. Dad had a brother here. His name was Joe DeBlauw. And we stayed in their chicken coop, I think. Chicken coop was converted into a little living quarters. But we stayed there first until Dad found a place, and then we lived in town. He rented a house. And so that was in 1938, I guess. And so I've been here ever since. We used to live downtown Redlands on Webster Street, where Mom had number 6. And then after that they moved to Loma Linda, because they only had a 2-bedroom house here with 6 kids and a little sleeping porch. And they moved to Loma Linda. Dad traded the property, the house and lot, for 2 acres, grapefruit grove. And he didn't have a job. He got a job then right after the war broke out. They built Norton Air Force Base. So he helped build that, and he worked there for a good many years. And they were so happy because he didn't have a job and 6 children. And then later on, Eleanor was born, my sister Eleanor. She was born at home. And then a couple years later, then Margie was born, and she was born in Loma Linda Hospital up on the hill. And from there, they moved to Redlands on Grant Street in about 1963 or 4. The state bought their property for what is now the freeway.
Well, I'm Joyce DeBlauw, but I was born Joyce Lorraine Vandervecht in Orange City, Iowa, to Ed and Alvina Vandervecht. And I was the only child for 5 years. And after 5 years, my brother Don was born, and I do remember not being very happy that I had to share the center space with Don. My parents were very, very poor. So we lived with the grandma and grandpa for many years. And I lived with my youngest uncle, who was Dick Vandervecht. So it was rather interesting. As time went by, we moved, and then I got a pair of wonderful roller skates. Oh my word, they were the best ever. And at that time, you were allowed to take those roller skates and go roller skate all over, and I would go to the little store and buy a loaf of bread for 10 cents. And when you think about what is now, it's quite amazing. Well, I just knew that, number one, I was not going to be poor. I wanted to get an education because neither one of my parents had any education. And so by the age of 10, all I ever wanted to do was be a teacher. And I thought, no matter what it takes, I'm going to be a teacher. And I have to tell you, I worked my way all the way through getting my master's degree because I was plain and simple determined to get it. And at that time, it was legal to teach after you graduated from high school. So the stipulation was you go to summer school. I went to summer school in Lamars, Iowa for like 12 weeks, and then I taught in Princeburg, Minnesota for 2 years. But in the meantime, I kept taking classes and decided then after teaching there for 2 years, I would get my first degree, which was the AA degree. And then after that, I went and taught in Pella, Iowa for 3 years, and then came back to Northwestern and finally graduated with my BA degree in 1963. And then I said, well, I'm going to go to California. I just kept hearing the voice say, get out of here, get out of Iowa. And my parents were astounded. They said, California is so wicked. You are going to go to the dogs. They were very unhappy. But my friend Helen and I decided we were going, and we both got jobs at Valley Christian. I taught 5th grade and she taught like 1st grade, I think it was. And we didn't have a car when we came, but we found a man from the church, and he helped us find a little blue Falcon. And after we were at Bellflower, we really didn't like the Bellflower area that much, but we met someone from Redlands, and we really liked Redlands at that time. It was just beautiful, all orange trees. It was just like a little paradise for people coming from Iowa. And so then I taught in Redlands for 4 years. And it served me well. I love teaching. And so that was a pretty interesting part of my growing up years. But it was very challenging with all the kids around. Well, you can imagine with 9 children around. And my poor mother was very overworked, so I helped her an awful lot.
I'm glad I was brought up in a Christian home. I never went to the Christian school, always went to the public school, started out at mission school in Loma Linda. We lived a mile from it, but we always had a bus to go on. And then I went to junior high here in Redlands and Redlands High School. And I was a box boy at Stater Brothers here in Redlands, thanks to my brother, because he took my mom shopping. Mom never drove. She didn't know how to drive. And so many ladies didn't drive in those days. But my brother and her were at Stater's, and Howard Woodstra, who was the manager there, Mom knew his mother and the family, members of the family. And then my brother asked him if he needed any box boy. Bill was thinking about me. And so Howard says, yeah, we're going to have an opening here pretty soon. So Bill come home and told me about that, and he says, you get over there and apply for it. And so I did, and I got the job. So I worked after schools and on Saturdays. I wouldn't work on Sundays, and Howard knew that. And many of the guys wanted to work on Sundays because you got time and a half. So I didn't care. So anyway, I worked there until after graduating from high school. Then I didn't have any work. I had to quit there because I was a checker, but they wanted me to start working on Sundays, and so I didn't. And so then after that, I got a job at Norton Air Force Base, and I worked there for 2 years. And I used to work on jet engines on the assembly line. We had to assemble all these things on there. And then we had a big layoff there at the base, and then so I didn't have a job, and so I thought, well, I got a little money saved. I'm going to take a bookkeeping class or business administration class at Scattering College. So I had a step nephew, and Henry and I, we went to Scattering College for a year. It was just in a small building in San Bernardino, but there were a lot of nice kids there. We always had a good time. Then after graduating from there, then I was walking the streets looking for work, and I saw this big new building. I thought, man, it would sure be nice to work in a big new building. And I didn't even know what a title company was. So I went in there, and there was a Mr. Holmes. He was a nice gentleman. And he says, well, come back in a week. Might have something open. So I did that about 2 or 3 times. And finally he says, yeah, there's an opening. So I had to start at the bottom up. I started in the filing department, had to file stuff away. And then gradually worked my way up, and I became a title officer after a few years. And then I had my own secretary and customers, escrow officers. And then I worked there almost 14 years. And in the meantime, we got married. And then we went to Moore Park. We had friends up there. We went there for one weekend. And so after church and after lunch, well, I said to Ron, I said, you have any plans for the afternoon? I says, we could go to Santa Barbara because that was up there an hour away, 40 minutes. And he says, no, I don't. So I called Reinhardt. Margie and Reinhardt had lived up there. And Reinhardt said, he said, yeah, come on up. So we went up, and while we were there, Reinhardt said, say Roy wants to sell his nursery. He had a nursery downtown. It was just a small nursery, one-man nursery, a family place. It had to be a family business. So I didn't think I could do it. Joyce says, oh, you love plants, you can do it. So we came back home. The 1st of March, I called Roy and said, we'll take the nursery. He says, well, you better get up here right away because it's spring, it's just right around the corner. It's a good time to have business. So we came home. We put up our house for sale. Joyce sold it in 3 days.
Yep.
I had surgery on my leg because we weren't going to have any insurance. I had varicose veins. So we had the surgery done. And in the meantime, we were getting rid of our house, and we had Janny as our baby. She was 18 months old. And so then we packed up, and Bob helped move, and my cousin Bob and Reinhardt helped move. They had a moving truck, and my leg was all bound up, so I couldn't do too much. So we moved to Santa Barbara into a duplex. Mm-hmm. And oh, was it hard to find a place that would allow any children. They didn't want any babies in there. But Joyce found one. And while we were there, in that duplex, we stayed there about a year. Joyce looked every ad over in the paper, see where there might be a house. We looked at so many houses. But I wanted to take our bedroom set there because it was a triple dresser and it was expensive. So I said, the house has to have room for our bedroom set. So, and I said, I don't want any ivy on the property because the rats live in it. And so then finally the realtor, he was kind of disgusted with it. Mm-hmm. He says, I think you're more interested in your bedroom set than in a place to live. And so then you go on and tell what the rest of the story is.
Well, we did finally find a place. It was for sale by owner. When I saw it on Sunday, when I called on Monday or Tuesday, they said, oh, sorry, we've listed it with a realtor. And I said, well, last week I called an ad and they said they would honor their advertising. So she said, well, I'll ask the realtor. And he said, that's fine. You can show it to him since you advertised it. And the rest is history. We bought it and we were able to move in just before Julie was born in 1972. So we had come up in April and she was born December 27 of 72. We went with one of the teachers from Valley Christian School, Judy Zimmer. We decided to go to Knott's Berry Farm, which was like a weekend. And at Knott's Berry, we ran into the other kids that were from the Christian Reformed Church in Redlands, and Walt was one of them. And so we all visited and we all had fun together at Knott's Berry Farm, and that was kind of the end of it. I didn't think too much of it, but we did take a picture, and I still have that picture of meeting Walt in Knott's Berry Farm that many, many moons ago. And so anyway, then as I was saying, we decided that we didn't care for Bellflower and the Artesia area so much, so we went and applied to Redlands Christian. Then as time went by, we all had fun as a young adults group. We would go horseback riding and to ice skating shows and stuff. But finally on November 22, 1963, we had our first date. And we were going to go to see a show at Civic Light Opera. However, if you know your history, you know something significant happened that day, and that was the day that JFK was assassinated. So the show was canceled, and we had to figure out something to do. So we drove up to Arrowhead and had lots and lots of time to talk. and I think we went for dinner or something. I really don't remember. But anyway, however, there was someone else in the picture, and that was a friend of mine that was really, he had a crush on Walt, and I'm not going to go into the details, but it was a little dicey. And so anyway, then I decided, after teaching there for 4 years, nothing had happened. I said, I'm out of here. I'm going to go and get my master's degree. So I left and went to Greeley, Colorado, and there I decided I would get my master's degree. And I put Walt out of the picture. So another year passed, and I was graduating with my master's, and I got a phone call from Walt. And I had just decided I wasn't going to send him an announcement. I said, nope, I haven't heard from him. He's out of the picture. So I just sent it to the other guy, who was Martin Mulder. And that was kind of funny. But anyway, after we started talking, things started brewing a little bit, and he said, well, I really want to come out to Colorado to see you. And then things started developing. And we got married in June 30 of 1969, and just celebrated our big 50th.
I like that she was a good person. I knew that right off the bat. I mean, you know, she had certain values, and she proved out to be a good person, and she's a good cook, which surprised me because I thought Helen was the good cook. We used to go to their house. Cliff and I did. My friend, he was my roommate here, and we used to go to their house at night, uninvited. And so
big bummer.
Somebody baked a pie one time, and it was a flop, and I never did find out who baked that pie, but I think it was her, because she'll never bake me a pie.
Oh, good things
but
like that.
Anyway, we had a lot of fun running around, flying around. And then she was a Christian. I wanted to make sure I married a Christian woman, but I didn't want to try to convert another person as to how I believe, because marriage is rough enough the way it is. I mean, you know, there's a lot of adjustments. And so that all helps when you all think the same as far as the Lord goes. And I don't know, things just kind of fall in place as years go on. In 1980, we decided to move back to Redlands. We were going to move to Ripon. We had a house there and everything. But then my brother-in-law, Reinhard, and I owned a gas station in Mentone, Arco Station. And Reinhard says, why don't you move back here? Kenny Acom is going to give up the station. He was leasing it. And I thought, you know, maybe we should. My folks are still living here, and the girls could get to go know their grandparents a little bit. They were quite old. They were older than younger than we were now. But anyway, we made the move back to Redlands, and we sold the property in Ripon right off the bat. We didn't make anything off of it, but we were happy that we were rid of it. And so then we came to Redlands, rented a house. I run the station. It had a car wash and a garage with it, so I leased out the garage. And then we lived in Redlands for a year. We rented a house on Ardmore. And then one day, Bill Whitehurst, who was a realtor, a friend of ours, he stopped at the station. And Joyce just happened to be there at the same time. And so he wanted to show us this property up here, this 5 acres with the old house on it. Because Reinhard had put an offer on that property before he bought the plantation. And so then we had never been to this end of the town. And so we looked at that old house, and it was a big bin. It was such a mess. Broken windows. There was a family living in it, but they had no heat, and the roof leaked like a sieve. And so they moved out. We bought the property from Mrs. Gross in Illinois someplace. And I called her yet to see if she would carry the loan. Oh, she says yes, right off the bat. So she carried the papers, and so we didn't have to go get a loan at the bank. And so then I just sent her payments every month, and then I worked on that old place for about 4 months to where it was decent enough so we could move in. We moved in that old house. We didn't know what we were doing. I had the bulldozer in there, and they cut the driveway and blocked off the old driveway, and he took out all the old trees and dead berries and everything behind the house. I still can't see how we ever did it. I think my dad thought we were crazy, and we probably were. I should have bulldozed down the whole thing and had a new house, but then we wouldn't have this house. But anyway, we were in that house for 10 years, and Joyce wanted to go back to teaching, and I sold the station. So we had that income coming from there all the time for payments. So I thought, I'm not going to invest this money in some stockbroker. I said, let's build our house. So I built this house.
That was in
and
90.
I think it did much better than stocks would have ever done. Prior to this house, I put all new orange trees around. This was vacant 5 acres. And this, we bought it because we first bought this place, didn't we? This 5
don't
acres.
Go back. Stop.
Well,
it's
now
not
I have
important.
To.
No.
But we bought this and it didn't have any water on, and the water was going to be so expensive to get in here. So then we bought that old house because it had water on it, and that's where we lived.
Yeah,
now
but
we
that's
live
too much
here.
information.
But anyway, this was vacant 5 acres, and I planted every tree on it because these trees were here when we built the house. But I left a space here for a house because I knew we were going to live here someday, because I always promised Joyce a new house, but I didn't expect to build such a big house. But here we are. Well, I grew up in Redlands, in the Loma Linda area, but I went to school here and everything. And then we were gone the 8 years in Santa Barbara, where we had our 3 additional children. And my favorite thing, I think, is the smallness of town. It's not so small anymore, but it was. And we both enjoyed the Redlands Bowl.
Very much.
The YMCA. Joyce goes there every week. And it's just a nice town. It's just a nice, quaint town. You know a lot of people. Used to.
And I think Redlands is a good place because it has a lot of things for kids. It has a big soccer fans, and if you want your kids in baseball and all those good things, it's all available. And I think it is a city of a lot of churches. I know I've met a lot of people at the Y, and a lot of them don't go to my church, but they do go to church. Well, I think one of the highs is that, we were totally blessed to have 4 daughters. And that has really colored our whole married life, because we had Janny in September of 1970, and then we moved. When Janny was 18 months, we moved to Santa Barbara. And when we came back, Jennifer was 18 months. So in the 8 years that we were there, God blessed us with Julie in 72, Jill in 74, and Jennifer in 78. And we came back in 80 when she was 18 months. And I think that's just really significant. Leaving with 1, returning with 4. And the girls loved living out here on this property. They would just have a blast having their little houses under the orange trees and watching the irrigation flow through the furrows at that time. And it was just a really good life. And I just think God blessed us in so many ways, because we got to meet a lot of good people, and they became friends with a lot of people that they are still friends with even today. And then in, I think it was about 88, I went back to teaching full-time at Mariposa, and I met Anita Wingard, and it was through Anita, when she was afflicted with cancer, that we got into this amazing prayer group. And we had the prayer group that met every Monday night for 20 years. It was just absolutely such a gift. And it really, really just changed our lives, because we had these wonderful people praying for us and praying for our daughters and their spouses.
And vice versa.
Yes, and we prayed for all their kids. So that was just a really great thing, and only God could have orchestrated that, because we didn't know any of the people except Lynn Martin. And she called and she said, "Hey, a group is forming for Anita because of her cancer. Would you like to come?" And I said, "Well, I'll try it for 2 times and see how I like it." And man, I was hooked. It was just one of the best things. So that is a big part of our 50 years. And also, I think going to Bible study fellowship and having a camaraderie with other Christians. And since I was a teacher and Walt was self-employed, every summer we went on a trip. And that was just one of the big highs. And we were so thankful that we could share the motorhome with Reinhardt and Margie, because it just made such a difference.
I don't know if I have any highs and lows. I think the highs were when all 4 of my daughters got married.
That was a good high.
That was a good high.
A very good high, especially since they were Christian men.
Yeah, it makes such a difference who you marry. And they all married well. I'm proud of all of them. And now we have 14 grandchildren.
And that's another great high.
It's a great high. Ages 18 to 6.
Olivia is 6.
So we have quite a few kids, all about the same age, and that's kind of nice too.
And one of the things that was really special is that we all were able to go up to Forest Home for the 50th and be together there and eat our meals together in the big area where the people that are at the conference can eat and enjoy each other's company. And it was kind of special because we had sunshine, we had a little rain, and we even had snow. So God sent us all kinds of weather.
And then this past, a couple months ago, we had a family reunion. I think there were 126 there. And that was a highlight of this year.
One of the negatives probably of the 50 years was when I found out that I had colon cancer back in 12. And when after the test I came to, and he said, "Well, you have full-blown cancer." And so of course you just wonder if it's going to be stage 4 or whatever, but praise the Lord, it was confined to the colon wall, and so I did not have to have chemo, which was a huge blessing.
And one of my lows was when I fell off the quad and fractured my hip, and we had a plan to go to Hawaii in a couple weeks. But I went anyway.
And this is going to be 4 years ago tomorrow. It was on the 23rd of September that he fell off the quad, and he said he never had pain like that before.
Oh, that was so painful. Oh, I've had back surgeries, but nothing like the pain of that little fracture. One of my highs too in life, I hiked to Mount San Gorgonio, which I never thought I'd do, but I did go up there. I and some other relatives. Well, he seems to hear and answer our prayers. And it seems so strange with my life. I always wanted to work in a nursery when I was a kid. And by cracky, I landed up owning one. We lived out of town, and I had no transportation to Dangerman's because I could have worked there. Other kids in my class were there working, replanting and stuff like that. But I didn't have any transportation, so I never worked there. But here I landed up with a nursery. and I always wanted to marry a school teacher. Here I land up and I always wanted to have 4 daughters, and I got 4 daughters. I think the Lord knows what you want, and you just got to trust and obey that things will happen. I didn't expect to get married so late in life. My word. I told my friend, I said, if I'm not married by 25, you tap me on the shoulder, but he never did.
Well, I was 31 when I got married, but I always said I'd rather be single and wish I was married than to be married and wish I was single. That would be much worse. And I saw God in my life, just first of all, even getting to get my degree. That was just amazing because I had no one to help me. And that was just a huge, huge victory for me to be able to teach, and then to be able to teach in the public school because I had my master's degree. And another thing, I think God was really watching over us when we did the Santa Barbara adventure, because here I was a teacher and I had to learn to do the bookkeeping. I was green as grass. I had no idea what it was to keep track of books. But I had to learn it all from this man who talked to me over the phone. And
he sold us the books. But
and then,
he learned it all over the phone.
And it ended up being the best thing we ever could have done was taking that nursery over, because it really set us up financially, or we would not be where we are today. So I can certainly see God's hand. And buying it from a Christian man made a very, very big difference. That was another very important thing. And just the little people that God brought into my life, Anita and then Lori Schoolin, and they really walked the journey with me. And we really were very close. We prayed together and worshiped together and cried together. And that is just invaluable. And I think it's so amazing that we are in such close proximity with our grandchildren, because so many of my friends, all their grandchildren are out of state. So I just consider that one of the huge blessings of living in this area. It's just fabulous.
So just make sure you marry a local girl. Not local, but
not necessarily local, but somebody that is walking with the Lord.
No, not really.
I think maybe one of my best holy habit is getting up in the morning and meeting the Lord with my different books that I like to read, and just having time to kind of give the day to God and remember to pray for those people that I know need that extra prayer. And the 14 grandchildren, as I showed you on the sheet, that's a big thing. And there's always, the half hour just goes like very, very fast.
You don't talk about the deceased.
Well, I guess that if I had to put it in a nutshell, I would kind of like them to say, you know, she had the joy of the Lord in her heart. Because I try to be on the upward swing. I try not to be too negative. And I really do try to, not all the time, but try to give people hope. If I see some people that are kind of, down and out, I might say, hey, how about meeting for coffee? And I just let them talk. And so I've done quite a bit of that. And I think, you want to be remembered as walking with the Lord in gratitude for what He's done for us. Because without the faith and hope, life would be very shallow, and there really wouldn't be much to think about. And now, going to glory is I look forward to it. I know it'll be sad, but it will be being with the Lord forever. And I think that's just, it can't be better.
Well, I think of the last part of what Joyce said too, it can be better. When you pass away, it is going to be sad for those that you leave behind, but you'll be in glory, and we just have to stand on that promise. that we will go to heaven if we believe in the Lord. I would say always live for the Lord and know the Lord and what He expects from you, and don't let anybody else influence your thinking. When I worked at the title company, I worked with a lot of people that just lived, and they're so anxious to see you live the way they live, and just don't go along with it. Just walk away if they want you to their party or something. Don't go to it, because you know what's going to go on, and you'll live through it. But don't fall for the ways of the world.
Well, I think that pretty much summarizes mine too. I think what I'd like to have you all remember is that God is sovereign, and He really is there for you, even through the hard times. Like even with colon cancer, I really felt the presence of the Lord more than at any other time. And people would say, "Oh, we're praying for you," and I could really feel it that they were. And I kept saying, "Lord, if this is stage 4 of colon cancer, I'm just going to go and meet you. I'm not taking any treatment, as long as it's that far advanced." But in God's grace and mercy, it was contained in the colon wall, so I never had to face that. But so keep your eye on the Lord even in the hard times, because hard times will come. It's not going to be easy. There will be difficulties, there will be sadness, but I think for me it's been so wonderful to have that joy of the Lord through all of life, whether the good and the bad. And this verse from Isaiah, which I love, is, "They that wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up like wings, with wings of eagles. They shall run and not be weary." And that's kind of my theme song or verse.
Well, it was always important for me to continue our love for the Lord, because some of my family members strayed away, and I knew their lifestyle, and it just wasn't right, you know. So that was one of the important things for me, and that's probably why I got married so late in life, because I wanted to make sure I got the right wife. And evidently I did.
Well, 50 years is a
50
pretty
years.
good test, I'd say.
Our Father which art in heaven, we draw nigh unto you, Lord, at the evening hour of this beautiful day, Lord, to ask your blessing upon this food and to thank you for it, Lord. And Lord, we just pray that you'll bless us this time together. And Lord, we just pray, Lord, that you'll be with all our children, with the grandchildren, Lord, wherever they may be. Pray especially for Annika and Billy as they're off to college. Keep them strong, Lord, in this old wicked world. And we just pray that you'll keep them ever near and dear to you, as well as the rest of our grandchildren. And Lord, we just pray for our government, Lord. Work in the hearts of those that are so against us. And we just pray that there may be some changes in these hearts that are so against you. Lord, we ask this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.